Welcome back to the channel, DIY folks of the internet. Today's video is on my shed, and it is on the last big project of my shed. And it is this door. I might have to rehang this door because it's peeling off the paint that's right here. Is the door not hung right? No, there's a small gap here and there's no gap here, and it pushes this out. Okay, anyway. The last big project for the shed. It's got power. I have to say, standing here, looking at the light and looking at all the wiring that I did and realizing that I did it myself, I have to say I feel pretty damn accomplished. So yes, this video is on the big final project of my shed, and that is adding electricity to the shed. In planning this project, I took a couple of weeks. The original idea was to put a double pole 30 amp breaker in my main panel and have that being fed to a sub panel here in the shed, and then break that 30 amp out into two separate 15 amp circuits, one for inside the shed and one for outside the shed. And while I had that idea, I started reading over the NEC code to see if there's anything I needed to know when putting power to a detached is external, you dumbass, putting electricity to a detached building separate from my house. Was there anything I had to do as a specific breaker that I needed? Like, does it have to be a ground fault? Did it have to be like a GFCI or an arc fault? So I started reading. And over the course of a few weeks of reading the NEC code and looking at cost, I pared back that goal of a 30 amp breaker, and I settled on a single pole 20 amp breaker from my panel to my shed. And then this is wired as all one circuit. So my shed has its own dedicated circuit. I thought that was locked, guess not. In reading the NEC code, going from the home to the building, the detached building, the power line has to be buried. And then I was trying to figure out, well, is there a distance that it has to be buried, or does it just have to be buried regardless of the distance? Because the shed is like 7 feet from the house. Do I really have to dig a 2-foot trench to go from the house to the shed? Can I just wire it suspend it in the air from the house to the shed? Couldn't I just do that? Could not find a clear answer. So I got Romex wiring 12-2 because it's a 20 amp circuit, and I got conduit that can be buried underground. So I got that. So I said, okay, that's where I'll go. That's how I'm going to approach this. So to get my materials, I went to an electrical supply store. I got 175 or so feet of 12-2 Romex wiring. I got my external disconnect, and I have an external breaker. And on that, the NEC code did say that the building had to have an external disconnect. And then on that, I was like, well, I can just get one of those switches that they have for AC units. We just pull the switch, you pull the breaker out, and the unit's disconnected. But everything I looked at was like 70 or so amps, and I didn't need anything that big. So when I was at the electrical supply store and explaining what I wanted to do, we settled on a single 20 amp breaker would be my disconnect. I've also seen online that people use a simple GFCI outlet as their disconnect for the building. So once I have all my materials, my electrical outlets in here are all 20 amp, except for where the light is. It is a 15 amp, as the switch is a 15 amp, and it's labeled 15 amp. That is the only thing that's 15 amp. But the receptacles and the boxes, the hardware stuff was bought from the big orange store. The electrical wiring and the panel and the breakers were bought at the electrical supply store. I think I paid like 80 cents a foot for the Romex wiring. Once I had my materials, my next goal of this project, or the next step, was where's my starting point? With that, I then settled on starting on the point between the house and the shed. That's where I started. I then moved in here and wiring this. And the last task of my project was connecting the shed to the actual electrical panel. So now we'll pick up with the external disconnect and going to the house. This is what it looks like now with everything done. So this is my actual disconnect. I have service disconnect, and in this is a single pole 20 amp breaker. This is going into 12-2 Romex wiring, which is then not technically buried, but it is underneath this piece of wood right here. And then I have it coming up and going into my house into this L&B. And for this whole project of doing this work, that's where we pick up now. While reading the NEC code, I did make sure when mounting my external service disconnect that it was the proper distance off the ground, which I believe mine is at 4 or 4.5 feet. As is the tradition of DIY, this is upside down. I don't think it matters. Anyway, as is the tradition with DIY, you do something once and then you're like, hey, wait a minute, I could do it this way. And then you come back and you redo it again and again. And in that process, you make like 65,000 trips to the hardware store. That's what happened here. So behind my L&B here, I don't have conduit attached to this going through the house, which I didn't think about when I planned out the project. So this L&B is just kind of bolted to my house to give it some support. And that is why I can pull this wiring through here. I wonder, can I reuse these? I don't know, we'll find out at a later date. I packed duct compound in there, but then I thought on the other side I was gonna get a can of great stuff and fill in the hole. Well, I then thought, well, let me go to the hardware store and see what I could find. And I was looking for a piece of conduit that was like a foot long, not 10 feet long, which they didn't have. So they had this 6-inch piece. So I'm thinking this will get me through the wall and then still be hanging on the other side with no support. But at least the cable, the wire, will be shielded from the siding, and then I can put great stuff around between this and the interior wall. I'm still going to have this screw right here giving support to this L&B. There we go. Now, gingerly, I'm going to pull this apart. See how I did not have anything there other than this putty compound. Now, I don't think I can reuse these Wago clips. So we're probably going to have to cut them and then re-strip the wire, and I will see if I can use them at a later date. I probably should have brought my lineman's pliers for this. Or I could have just went on the other side and ran this through the remaining 100+ feet of cabling I have. How this hole is right here, I had nothing there. I thought this little bit would have been enough to go through the whole house, but apparently I was wrong. So now the object is to pull out and pull this putty back out that I have stashed in this L&B right here. How much did I stack in there? Holy Lord. Objectively, then I probably could have just left it alone and said to hell with it. And then pack some of it around this here, like so. Thread this on, like so. And then take my cabling and push it through this conduit. Watch this give me trouble. Who would have thought 6 inches would give me so much issues? And it is. Because this isn't really there. Okay. Now, let's try this again. Insert all the way through. Yep, it's always going to give me some problem, isn't it? Yeah, there we go. There. Oh. Another lesson I learned. Probably should have just did this the first time through, and I wouldn't be tearing it apart. Or left it the way that I had it and said to hell with it. There, that just gives me some room. Or not. There we go. There, now I can then put the same screw in the same hole. Ow! And drill my finger at the same time. There we go. Listen. That's interesting. I don't think that siding is supposed to move. That's a project for another day. Reattach our L&B here. kind of, did I not have this level? I thought I had this level. Give me the wire. Give me the wire. Okay, I thought I had this level. But apparently, it's got a slight angle down. You know what? It's good for what it is, right? Okay, so now I just have to re-clip this stuff. That's all I gotta do now. And then I can move on the inside and finish this project. We have a car alarm going off. And with that, Cosmo has to give his 2 cents. There we go. Probably trim that up a little bit. Make sure these are like somewhat even. There we are. Not in the same hole, get your own hole. Okay. Come on. There we go. Perfect. Kind of. For what I'm doing. It's perfect. There. Get your own hole. There we go. There. Now we just fold this back in our little enclosure and we put it back together. And then we also make sure our cover reads right side up this time. There we go. The next segment is me wiring this external disconnect for the shed. And with that, the audio is not quite that good. And that is my fault because I placed my mic between my shirt and my inner shirt with no dead cat on it. So as I'm moving around wiring this box, my shirt is going over this microphone. And for that, I apologize. I'm gonna wire up my external disconnect for my shed. And now I read online that people, for this external disconnect, they've used a simple GFCI outlet mounted outside the shed, and then that was their disconnect. I probably went overboard and got an actual disconnect panel. I have a 20 amp breaker, and I'm gonna wire this up now. The other end of this wiring isn't connected to my panel inside. The other end is just draped inside, touching the basement floor. So, the only thing I'm not entirely sure on, one, I'm not an electrician. Two, I'm not a subject matter expert. I'm just a DIY person, and I try to do as much research as I can to make sure I understand what it is that I'm doing. Educate myself. This is an external disconnect. I'm not sure if I can have the neutral and the ground share the same bus bar. It's an external disconnect, but I don't know if that's going to be treated as a sub panel. And I know in a sub panel, you cannot have ground and neutral on the same bar. They have to be separate. But I don't know if this is treated as a separate sub panel or if it's an external disconnect. That one I'm not sure. So I'm going to only put my neutrals on the bar, and I'll have a wire nut for my grounds. Let's see, how much wire am I going to need for this to make this look nice and neat on the inside? I'm going to go up like that. Make sure I have some extra wiring. So I'm going to cut this much off. About here. Ooh. No. Or not. Now the wiring that I'm using is 12-2 wiring. rated for 20 amps. Cut my sheathing. There we are. Well, they don't make this easy, do they? Take our breaker, and it should, there's a lip at the bottom. It's gonna go on the bottom of this, and then where the metal is on the breaker, it's gonna go on the bus bar. So it should just snap in, like so. Kind of simple. Now, our wiring up, 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 and in. And I probably have too much copper exposed. Is the lug nut out? There you go. Find the hole, and you just smash it in there. There we go. I have a little too much. Too much for my liking. So I'm going to trim this off a little bit. And I say that because it went past the lug and it was touching the screw. Find the hole. And we have a little bit extra still. Now I don't really know if if it really matters how long this is. I guess it just depends on how anal you want to be. I try to do right all the time. I think that's as good as that's gonna. I think that looks good. Let me tighten that up. Ow! Just jammed myself on plastic. Now, as for the neutral, we're gonna come in and we're gonna go in right here. Try to make this look nice. What are you yelling about? The neighborhood knows that you're here. Believe me, my liege. My liege. They know that you're here. Will you knock? Love. Love, they know you're here. There we go. And then we strip this back. Probably got too much wire because I can't really. Okay. I'm just gonna go with the top one. There we go. There. That's halfway decent, don't you think? And then I have extra in there. And then we can just coil this up as a ground. Smurfalific. Wire up there. Now we put our panel on. Does this panel just kind of like, what? Does this? Okay, and I'll be back to wire the shed to the breaker itself. Does this not stay closed? Okay, that's gonna drive me nuts. Let me know what you think down below. In the shed is the next task of the project, and my shed's completely disorganized. But right there, at the end of my finger, is where I have the Romex coming in from the disconnect outside. And I think there are grommets that you can get where Romex is passing through walls, but I didn't get those grommets. I just used Dutch compound. I only learned of the grommet after the fact. And then I go down to an outlet where I have my air compressor plugged into, and as you can see, I have a service loop. And then I ran to another outlet right here. Now, this is where I measured NEC code said the outlet had to be 12 inches off the floor to the bottom of the outlet, I think. So my outlets are 12 inches off the floor. And when I did this run, I measured 12 inches and then ran it and then realized, hey, dumbass, the wiring has to be higher. Although I could have just went through the stud and went under the outlet. It came in from the bottom, but I digress. But I had my service loops, which those are not required per NEC code that I'm aware of. But I think in here, it was good practice to get in the habit of doing it. And if I want to reconfigure this wiring in here at some point in the future, I could. Like if there's wiring right there, I can make that into a double gang box. Over here, next project is to put a bench in right here. And in doing that, I wanted power up here. So I do have a double gang box with two 20 amp outlets. As you can see right here is this outlet. This marks it's a 20 amp and my ground is facing up. And then this feeds electricity going to the outside outlet, and then it feeds this. And as I mentioned earlier, this is my light switch. And I do have it marked as 15 amps because this switch is a 15 amp. And then up at the top, I have my light. Now it is plugged into an outlet, and this is a part of the project where I was contemplating on, do I hardwire the light up there or do I have a light that plugs in? The light that I purchased can either be both. I chose to plug it into an outlet because further down the road, if something's wrong with this light, I can just unplug the light and put a new one up there. I don't have to pull the light and do any kind of wiring or rewiring inside some kind of box. And on that box, that electrical outlet box, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but it does say 15 amps and that outlet is a 15 amp outlet. Oh, wiring up my shed. Oh, I just realized, I know the disconnect's right here, but I didn't know how far in these screws protruded. Oh wow, I noticed this one's up higher than this one. I must have put that one in the wrong hole. Oops. Oh, there's even screws right here for the cap bracket that holds the conduit to the side of the paneling. Anyway, I'm gonna put an outlet right here as my starting circuit, and then from here, I'm gonna wire the rest of the shed. I think the code is what, 12 inches from the floor is how high up outlets go, or is it higher? I don't remember. So we have our mark. The bottom of the box is the 12 inches, so I'm gonna put the bottom of the box with that, and then I'm gonna hammer this in place. That could have done better. How about I knock out these clips in the back first so I can feed wire in here. And then hammer in my box. There we go. Kind of flush to the beam, but I think I'm a little too far back, so the faceplate won't sit flush. Well, I'll have to pay more attention when I go to the other outlets. There's no going back now. Now we put our wiring in, and then probably don't need that much wiring. So what we do want is, I already have it outside bent around the disconnect about how much wire I want. That's why this won't come in anymore. So I can aim right here, aim here, and then have a little service loop right here. Oh, do you need service loops? There we go. Then I'm just going to use one of these staples and staple my wiring. Stapling my wiring right here. Whoops. Okay, I could have done a better job on that staple. And then we go up here too. And now I have my little service loop here. And then we have wiring coming out. There. And then probably don't need this much wiring. Oh, I didn't get that. Cut my wiring without cutting myself, preferably. There we go. And we have a ground. There we go. Ouch. There. Now, since I have 20 amp circuit, I've got 20 amp receptacles to make sure everything matches. And this goes in how much? Does it tell me how much to strip off? On our outlet, $12. There we go. And now we have our power. So when you're doing outlets, do you put the ground prong up or put the ground prong facing down? I've read that it goes up in case the plug is not all the way in the outlet and then something falls, it hits the ground side first before it hits the hot side. And I believe in commercial buildings, the ground side is facing up. Let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna put mine up. And then we just insert, and then we screw it down. Black goes on the brass, white goes on the silver, white goes on the ground side. And then, with my little excess here, I cut this off. A little excess here for the ground. Since I need to carry this ground through the rest, I'm going to make a little grounding thing, pigtail. So I'm going to cut some extra sheathing off so that I have a ground. I've never used Wagos before, so it's the first time I'm going to try it. And since I'm going to have 3 connections here, we got 1 connection to the ground, and we got 1 connection to the outlet. I don't have my needle nose with me. We need to bend this around. Then that way, probably should have made that a little bit longer. And then that should go stuffed back inside there. Well, we'll just do it like this. And then we tighten the screw. And now I know when I do this for the rest of the receptacles to make my little wire longer than what I got. And then this should fold back up in the outlet and test fit everything I got going on here. Where's my screwdriver? Probably should have got a Milwaukee power tool here. I'm too cheap. We're gonna do it by hand. Actually, I like Cobalt better, but my opinion. Yeah, my box is not flush all the way. Listen, in a shed such as what I'm doing, would you put face plates over the outlets, or would you just leave it bare? Yeah, that's look a little crooked, but my compressor is going to sit right here and it's going to hide that. All right, now I just got to rinse and repeat. Well, I had to disassemble this, but rinse and repeat for the rest of the shed. Yippee. Oh, one other thing I probably could do is roll out some of this duct compound putty. And probably stick it in this. Not that it's probably really gonna matter because I'm not heating this shed, but I think that would give that wiring something to cushion against so that it's not rubbing on the plywood itself. There we go. All right. Now we do the rest of our project. Oh, I'm getting too old. Oh, the older you get, the lower that floor gets. And now I'm going to install my outside box before I run the wiring. And in doing this, I noticed after the fact that the box that I bought is metal and there are no external mounting points to mount it to a surface. There are mounting points on the face of it, which implies that this is supposed to be mounted behind the siding instead. I probably could do the measurement, get my multi-tool out and cut a hole smaller than this box and mount it on the inside and have a nice flush finish. I don't know. That's not really the route that I want to go down. I just want to mount it on the wall right here and be done. Because I don't have any external mounting places, I did drill 2 holes in the back. So I'm going to start by, between the stud and this stud was like 15 inches. And the stud itself is like 3, so I'm like right here and right here. So as long as I'm right here in this area, I can mount my box. And the wiring I have on the other side was 20 inches from the floor. So I'm outside here. I'm gonna go 2 feet from the ground. So I'm gonna put it, I don't know if there is NEC code for mounting a box on the building, how high it has to be off the ground. But I'm gonna go 2 feet, so I'm gonna put it right, the bottom of my box is gonna be right here. So I'll make a little mark. And then I'm gonna use my screws. We're gonna do a few things. Put a screw through here. And then, oh shoot. Oh, I need my level. I wanna make sure, well, what I'm gonna do first is drill this pilot hole here with the box right here. There's my pilot hole. Okay. Need my level. Where's that little bastard? Is this magnetic? Well, what good is having a magnet if it don't work? Okay. So I'm going to use some silicone and place some silicone on the hole here of where I'm going to put this screw. Find my stuff here. Make sure my ground side is down. Box. Oh, come on. There we go. Our box is level. And plumb, level. That's all she wrote, folks. You bitch. I think this is where I'd like to have like some extra hands. Like tack this in place so that this can be held. And then we're going to make sure we're plumb. Screw this in. Like so. Level. We're plumb. We're good there. And then we're gonna add some more. There we go. And then I'm only gonna put, well, that's not what I intended on doing, but that's what happens. I'm only gonna I'm only gonna put silicone on the top plug because it's the plug that's gonna have water hit it. So I'm gonna do a little dab of silicone. And this might make a mess. It's not the first time I've had to do something making a mess, but put a little bit of silicone on there and we screw that down. The bottom one I'm not worried about unless rain comes up this way, but I don't live in a hurricane area. And find the hole. It's going straight, not crooked. There we go. That's it. There we go. Now I'll go get my wire and run everything through. There's my putty. It's just gotta be 6 inches from the back, right? And we're about 2 inches higher than where we need to be. Do I have my lineman's pliers? No, I do not. Perfect. Now on the back of a GCI, it does say your load side and your line side. Your line side, if I understand it correctly, the line side is the power to the outlet. The load side is if I have another outlet downstream, that outlet would connect to this outlet on this load side. Brass is the hot, and the side of silver with the ground is neutral. Okay. Oh, and it even says hot and white. Some of them don't say it on the back. You need to be the line. You need to trim the lines up a little bit because those are a little bit too long. So we'll just do this. Line side, hot side, check, check, and check. It's still a little too long. Well, at least for the black one looks a little too long. That looks better. And then we do the other side. And then we tuck that back in there. I need to make myself a little ground so I can ground the outlet and ground the box. And to do that, I'm gonna use a spare piece of wire without cutting my thigh. And I'm gonna use a Wago. Oh, I need another piece of wire because that's gonna go to the box. I need one to go to the ground. So what we do is we make one simply by taking the sheathing off. Ideally. Like so. That way I got where I need it to go. And then this goes in here. Probably can cut this one down. That way. There we go. Quick pull, make sure they don't come out. Make me a loop. make me loop, and then we loop this back in there. There we go. And then we loop this over this side. Why is that? Is that screw always this tight to remove? Okay, that was unique. All right, yeah. Oh, I should just, oh no, I didn't. Oh, shoot. All right, then this whole thing gets folded up into the box. Make sure nothing's touching. What the this ground screw is sitting too high and didn't want to clear inside the box. Move my gasket material, line it up with the back of my plate, open it up, and lose ourselves. Isn't that how that works? Is this really how that works? Well, that can't really be right, because the top screw isn't aligned. The holes aren't not aligning like at all. Ah ha ha ha, there we go. Oh, level, plumb, looking good for DIY. Let me know what I could improve on, or let me know where I screwed it up down below in the comments. Oh, I've been on my knees too long. The older I get, the lower this floor gets, or the ground. Oh, upsy daisy, come on, old man, get up. Oh, when you get to my age, shit falls apart. Oh, finally. Oh, man. The inside of the shed is done. Now I'm wiring up my disconnect outside of the shed. I need one more item. Ouch, you son of a bitch! Ugh. Now that I've done stubbed my toe, okay, I think I have everything I need. This should pop back out. There we go. Okay, so now we've got the wire coming from the shed right here. We've got the wire coming from the house right here. Now, my box doesn't have a grounding screw, so I got these grounding clips. If I can get one out so that I can, well, this is gonna be a pain in the ass, is it not? Oh, there we go. So I got these grounding clips, and it looks like I can just run the wire through this, clip it right here, and that way the box is grounded independent of the neutral bar, or the neutral bar. Then I've got some putty, so let's get our wiring open here so we know what we're working with. And I don't feel like going to the ER, so let's not cut myself. Let's separate our wiring here. There we go. Separate our ground here. There we go. And then we can, there we go. Now I'm going to take some of the duct compound that I have. I'm gonna roll it up and I'm gonna put it in here. Kind of stuff it back in there to give this wire from the building to this box some kind of like cushion. And then I'm gonna bend this up and out of the way. That way. Okay. There. So now we have a neutral going over here. Up and like that. And we have our hot going right here. There. Ouch. Do you put service loops? There we go. Okay. Will that hold? Perfect. Now we just do a little bit of wire stripping. And then we unscrew one and we find the hole from the side and we set it in there. Make sure we're tight. There. There. And then I don't think I need that much of that cabling. So I'm going to snip that. I'm going to strip it. Well, this screw is a little tight. There we go. Let me put our hot in our breaker. Now I'm sure there's a torque spec for this and a torque spec for that. I don't know if it specifies a torque spec, but I'm sure those that are in the electrical trade will tell you there's a torque spec for all the bolts that are in here. I don't like how this is sitting on this breaker. I'm gonna trim a little bit more off. Let's see if I can't get this sitting in here a lot better. I'm not quite used to this. It looks like it's got, so I'm not used to this style breaker, but it looks like this bolt, rather than having one spot where the wire goes in, it's got a spot on the left and the right sides to have two wires going in. And it looks like it's got some kind of anti-grease, anti-corrosion stuff on the back of it right here. So we just tip this down and push it in. And that part's done. Probably could have been a little bit wired up better than what I got going on here. And we'll cut these evenly. There we go. And I will take this and shove it in. Shove it in, shove it in, shove it, and shove this one in. Listen, you jackass, get in there. There we go. And then shove this one in. And then we can probably fold that down and then take this guy over this way. I'm not sure if that is how that's supposed to go. But then we can put our little ground clamp on here. And then we use our screwdriver and push this on there. At least that's what the directions say to do. Is it supposed to be like this tight though? Well, oh, maybe I had it on there doing it wrong. There we go. And then we just trim our excess. Is this how this is supposed to work? I don't know. I have a feeling that tonight is not going to be a good night for me. Then this should just slide down, right? There. How did I do? Let me know. Make sure we put our panel back. Now, I don't have a bolt for this, so I think this just sits in there freely. Can I move this down a little bit? I don't like how this doesn't screw into anything. That's what I don't like. I might need to get a hammer and hammer this down a little bit. Ooh. Actually, that looks okay. But I don't like how this box just sits here like that. That I don't like. So does this go up more? Make sure these are all tight. That's good. That's good. Okay, that's good. Might have to get a hammer and move that over. What did Happy say? Just tap, just tap, 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 tap. Isn't that what he said? Okay. Oh. That looks better. There we go. Done. Although I don't like how this doesn't stay closed. There's no latching mechanism here. I don't know. And finally, the last portion of this project, and that is connecting the shed to the main panel. And it would not be a DIY project if you didn't have one of those oh shit moments. Ledge. Finally on the inside. So this is the other side. So this is the other side of the L&B that you saw previously. This is the new conduit piece that I put in. So before the wire just came through and I was gonna put great stuff around the wiring to seal the hole. And that's when I thought maybe I can go to the hardware store and see what options I had. And I found this 6-inch conduit already threaded. But rather than put great stuff around this hole, I'm gonna put the duct compound. Would you do great stuff here? Or would you do silicone? Or would you do what I'm doing and just use the duct compound and shove it in the hole? The next task now is to kind of like leave a service loop right here, per se. So that way I've got extra cord if needed. And then I'm gonna start kind of like right here and carry this all the way down. I hate hammering upside down. I probably should have drilled holes through the rafters, but I'm not doing all that. I'm just gonna run this down. Oop. Preferably without smacking myself in the face. That's probably as good as it's gonna get for me. Now I'll move my insulation back. I'll see you down at the panel. Now I'm at the panel, and I believe my neutral is on this side and my ground is on this side. So I'm gonna need enough wire to go down to the breaker, which is about right here, and up and over and down to the neutral, and then right here to the ground. Plus I'm gonna need some wire up here as a service loop. So I'm gonna come all the way down here with my lineman's pliers and trim off what I don't need. And then I've spent way too much time trying to untangle this cord so it's nice and flat. Probably shouldn't have to do that, but hey. With my wiring flattened, I spent way too much time doing that. I now need to look inside my panel and have an idea of where I'm gonna put my breaker. I'm gonna put my 20-amp breaker right here. The conundrum that I'm in is my panel has a double pole 30-amp breaker right here. And if I remove this, I will have an exposed bus bar right here. So I'm also gonna have to add another single pole breaker right here to cover that exposed bus bar. Also, I'm going to remove my panel and my breaker is going to be on, hence why I have gloves. This is a big point where you want to understand your knowledge, your skills, and your ability, your KSAs. I have knowledge of this panel because this is my home. I've been in this panel numerous times over the past decade and a half. I added these bottom 3 breakers separating my attic, my basement, and my furnace onto their own circuits, and I rewired the panel so that each room has its own dedicated circuit. So I'm very familiar with the layout of my panel, and I'm familiar with everything inside. And I have the knowledge to understand basic electrical work. I'm working with 2-phase, 240 volt power, and that's it. None of these breakers are GFCI except for this one. This is my EV charger. So I have knowledge of my panel. And the skill set is I have experience working in my panel, and I have experience working with the electrical. When I look at what I've done when I was 15 years ago in my early 20s, I look back and think, I could have done that better. Anyway, I have the skill set to know what I'm doing in here, or to do what I need to do in here. and I have the ability. I have the right tools to remove this, to safety precautions. That's why I have gloves on. That's why my watch is no longer in here. So I have enough KSAs to do this. However, if I was in somebody else's panel that I have never seen, you bet your ass that breaker would come off. Before I remove the panel, that breaker would go off because I don't know the panel. I don't know the inside of it. So when you get to this point as DIY, understand everything that is involved and take the proper precautions to do the job completely and safely. So that being said, I need a, is that a square? I need a square. Part of my safety is I'm also using tools that are designed for electrical work, not just regular screwdrivers and drivers and whatnot. Although I don't think these screwdrivers are rated for high voltage power, but for a home use that I'm doing, they'll work just fine. And this is the part that you want to be very careful about what you're doing. There we go. So this is the inside of my electrical panel. And wire nuts should never be inside a panel. I fully understand that. I definitely need to fix that. What the fuck did I do? I think some of these were in here when I bought the house, because this cabling is all old and I had to work with what I got. So another DIY project is to clean this up. Oh, I had it backwards. My neutrals are over here, my grounds are over here. Okay, so it does need cleaned up, but at the moment it's functional. So I'm going to, oh, this goes to the dryer, and this outlet is not used. So I'm going to remove these cables here. And when you're in here working, you see these two prongs down here? That's your bus bar. That is live. Don't touch that. So I'm in here with one hand. I loosened up these bolts. And then I'm going to pull these bolts, these wires out and push them down the side. I probably should remove this because this is for a dryer outlet that I no longer use. So these are connected. And I probably could remove it from the bus bar too. Or from the neutral from the bar that's right here. Why don't we go ahead and do that since I'm in here thinking about it. One hand in here, Berlin. So I gotta move my head around, pull this hand away, put one hand in, and pull that hand out. Oh, there's a nut too I didn't see. Who the fuck wired this? That's what happens when you buy a home. And if you don't have it properly inspected. I had mine inspected. We did not pull off the panel. Oof. And when I bought mine, the panel was up to code like this, but I had knob and tube everywhere else. So my first DIY project of my home ownership was removing the knob and tube, teaching myself electrical work, the basics of it, so that I had mostly code compliant outlets that were grounded. Each room was on its own breaker. So my homeowner's insurance didn't get canceled because when they found out I had knob and tube, they canceled me. And I was 23 at the time. I didn't know what the hell to do. I was scared, paranoid, and frustrated all at once. Here I am, 16 years later. Now I'm more confident than I was before. So before I remove this breaker, I'm gonna put my wiring in here. And I got little access points up here. There's little cutouts. So I'm gonna take a cutout, probably take this one right here, and then come. Actually, I wonder if I can come down the side and just knock this one out, make it easy on myself. Wonder if I could fix this. This would have to be on. This is basement. Focus on the topic at hand. Okay. So we're gonna want some extra wiring up here. Let's see, one hand inside. This is a spider mess of stuff. And I would have to like rerun all new runs, all new wiring. so that I have better access in here and not have whatever the hell this is going on that they did. Okay, so I think I'm gonna come right here, knock that out, come behind my neutral right here. This is the main power coming in. So I'm gonna come behind this and then split and go behind all of this shit. I don't know if I can go behind all that. It might be actually easier to come in right here and come straight down here. Here into the breaker, here into the neutral bar, and then come down, around, up, and then over into this bar. I think that's what we're gonna do rather than try to fight everything on this side as the conglomerate of stuff that they got going on in there. Okay, so let's get, I need a screwdriver. We're gonna gingerly push this through, like so. Probably could have used some pliers to grab this. Oh, that'll work. Now you can't run, you could run the wiring straight through here, but it would chafe on this cabinet and it could cut open. So you're gonna want like a wire grommet to pass the wire through. And then this gets screwed up in here. Thankfully, the neutral is not energized. It's capped at the telephone pole. I can't screw here. There we go. Some of this work is probably easier when the panel is brand new and you don't have a bunch of shit in the way. Now to make that tight, I'm gonna use a screwdriver and do this. There. So now that's tight. And then I'm gonna carefully have a service loop right here. So I'm just gonna shove the extra wire up in there. Find the hole, feel around for it, just a tip, put it in. And now I'm gonna gingerly pull this entire thing down. Of course, it gets twisted after I spent all that time to keep it untwisted. Come on. There we go. Come on, come on, come on. Okay. You want to terminate here, and I have enough wire to go around and over to my bar over there. Okay. Then I have enough wire at the top. I don't remember if that was a Phillips or not. Nope, it was one of these squares. So let me just use our screwdriver and tighten this up. There we go. So now I have my little service loop right here. I may or may not need a service loop, but it's nice to have. I don't know, do you put service loops on the outside of the panel or would you put that inside the panel? Now, we're going to cut this sheathing off and split this. I wonder if I could just cut this. This is kind of a difficult thing to do. There we go. Now, okay, I have plenty of space, plenty of extra length. So what I'm gonna do is unscrew this. And push the excess of this back up. Then take my wiring and kind of push it off to the side for right now. Now, I need this breaker removed, and that is as simple as taking and pulling towards you to lift off the back like that and pull out. Again, this is the bus bar that is live if you do not turn your panel off. So do not touch that. When you're putting breakers in your panel, you need to put the right breaker manufacturer in the right panel. So my panel is a Cutler hammer or an E-ton. So I go to the hardware store, I need to get an E-ton breaker, which is what we got. Now, I don't know if you put dielectric grease on the backs of these and put them in or not. I never did, but I've seen online that some people do. So to put this in, there's a lip right here. That lip contacts the front part of this, and then you just push the breaker down towards the back. Make sure the breakers are off before I go fucking around with them. In, and pushed out. There's one breaker installed, and then in and pushed out. Now my breakers are installed. Perfect. Hey, I got some exposure right there. I wonder if I should crimp that and push that in more, because I don't think I need to have that out. The EV's not charging. We're gonna pull that breaker off. I'm gonna fix that real quick while I'm looking at it. This is part of the reason why, being an electrician, you probably have OCD. Can this wire go in there anymore? No, it cannot. So I'm gonna pull this hot side out real quick, trim this up a little bit more, make this go back inside that hole. Shoot, I'm almost screwing up here and having two hands inside this panel. I probably need to cut more. Well, that looks better than what it did. There we go. Maybe. Okay. Turn that back on. Now, okay. Plan of action here. The plan of the action is we're gonna put white right here. Oh, I have the white and the neutral on the same bus bar. They can be on the same bus bar in the main control panel. There's a bar that goes from this side to this side. So the whites are your neutral and your ground can be on the same bus bar. You cannot have two neutrals or two grounds under the same lug. So utilizing that, I'm probably just gonna put my neutral and my ground right here on this side. In a professional setting, or a professional does it, they will actually try and separate ground on one side so it looks appeasing and your neutrals on the other side so it looks visually appeasing. This panel, I kind of bought it this way, so I'm stuck with what I got. All right, so what we're trying to do is not get sidetracked. Let's get this white installed here. So we're gonna come down like right here. And from there, we're gonna crimp. And then we're going to find a spot behind all the hots. And I'm gonna put it right down here on the neutral that I removed for this 30 amp. That's what we're gonna do with it. So I'm gonna try and figure out what the hell, what is this? Dining room driveway? We're gonna pop this breaker off. This is my fridge, I can't pop that breaker. But I can not have a tingle here. While I'm in here, we're gonna try, oh, there's another wire cap. What the okay, this is gonna be a train wreck. I need to focus while I'm in here on what my project at hand is. We're going to remove this wire while I'm here so that it's not situated like the way that it is. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't like that. I have a Wago. I'm gonna put a Wago right there because I don't like this wire nut. And that's the dining room. Is that my dining room? Yeah, that's my dining room. I don't like that wire nut. I'm gonna put a Wago right there. Actually, these are all threes. I think I have some threes Legos left over. I'm going to put Wagos in here and call it a day. Anyway, well, that was the kitchen. Okay. So that doesn't look as bad. I kind of fixed that up a little bit. What the fuck is this? I need to focus on, I could spend like a whole day in here doing this. Anyway, let's get on with the project. Okay. We need our ground to come down to Pound Town. We're gonna go under my 240 volt here, like so. We're gonna go under, and then we're gonna come and hopefully make a right angle right here. So just like that. That's what we gotta do. Okay. So we have our right angle. We cut our excess off. And then we wire strip it. And then we have the breaker. And then we gingerly. Why is this not wanting to go in all the way? Do I have... Does it not go in all the way? What the fudge? Pull this out real quick. Oh, wow. Okay. So this does not need to be that long. Let's do a test fit. That looks better. Listen. Click. There we go. Click. Now we put this in, and then we tighten this down. Like so. Now, we bring our neutral down, again behind everything here, like so. And I'm gonna put my neutral right there. So I'm gonna cut this right here. Well, that was a weird sound, but okay. And then we're gonna cut this off like so. And we're gingerly, oh, fudge. So I can cut this off a little bit more. Well, I think I'll just leave it. And what we're gonna try and do is come down. I overshot the bolt a little bit. You son of a, where did it go? This is gonna be a challenge. Great. There we go. All right. So I overshot my neutral a little bit by going down a little too far. There we go. Now that's under the lug. I'm not sure if there's an actual torque spec of torquing these down, these bolts down on the breakers or not. I would do hand tight and not anymore, because you don't want to, I don't think you want to over torque. And also, if you're adjusting these bolts where the feed goes in and the breaker's on, like I just adjusted this bolt, that bolt is actually hot. So be careful. That's why you use electrical tools that are kind of insulated. Okay, neutral's done. This Wago looks better. That looks better than what it was. Let's do the same thing right here. No lights. Lights. There we go. That's my surveillance. Shiitake mushrooms. Do I want to bring my surveillance equipment down right now to fix that? Save that for a later day. Our ground, I guess I can go all the way over. I'm guessing, what is this? Oh, that's the living room. Okay. Well, let's be careful here, folks. That's our ground, or that's that. So can this go over this way and come down? How about we just come straight down like we were doing? We come over here and we go down. I do have enough to come up and over. I think that's what we'll do. We'll just go down behind all of this, like so, gingerly. Although this is probably not the right way to really do this, is it? No, it's not. Crap. I don't know if I really like the way this panel is laid out either, but don't have much of a choice either. There we are. Oh shit. Well, that didn't go the way I wanted it to go. So I need to put my ground on here somewhere, do you know? I'd really have to like turn the power off, remove all these breakers, and separate all of this out and really redo that. That is a project for another day, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to maintain focus on the project we have at hand right now without getting too far offhand. We're going to come down right here. And now this guy is going to come down here. We're going to give it a little bit of a 90 degree, at least try to. Let's pull off our 240 volts so I can get in here and not bend these wires too much. We're going to go right underneath this green for the ground. Oh, come on. I did not think this would be challenging, but it is. Okay. And that, as janky as this looks, is my panel. We'll just cap these so they don't get used. And we'll just set them in there. Do I have another cap? I do. Okay. So now, should be able to pop this breaker on, and if my wiring is right to the breaker on the outside of the shed, this should not trip. Yes! Okay. Now I'm going to assemble this. One last item is, we got to make sure we label the breaker. Is this going to peel up? Nope, it is not. So we're going to put an X on that. X, and we're going to say shed. There we go. We go out to the shed and flip the outside breaker of the shed. Okay, now wiring in this tube is hot because the breaker panel is on. So now I'm gonna flip this switch on. If I wired everything right, it should stay on. Yes! Well, actually at first I can probably just test this right here and see this GFCI if I have it wired right or not. Oh, let's make sure. Our GFCI has power. And I don't know if you can see it, but these two left lights are on. Yes! Means that's done right. Inside the shed, light switch on. No, does this light switch have its own light? Oh, yes it does. Oh, the letter moved and it scared the hell out of me. What do we have? Light! Yes! The GFCI outlet outside was wired right, which means everything here to that outlet is wired right. Let's see to the directions. The right two lights are lit, means it's correct. My ground is inverted. We're correct. My double gang box right here. I don't like these tamper resistant outlets. That is for sure. And this one is kind of cockeyed. I'll have to go back and fix that. 2 lights. 2 lights. That might annoy me. I think my excitement and flipping the main panel breaker and flipping the disconnect breaker and then flipping the light switch in here was a little over the top. I mean, if I had done it right, doing it right, nothing's gonna happen anyway, right? Flipping the breaker in the main panel and then it trips itself would have been a huge problem. But I am DIY. I am not an SME and being an electrician. I don't do it for a lifestyle. I don't do it day to day. I only understand enough just for my home. And at my skill set, at my level, spending the money, reading the NEC code and interpreting what the code is saying and making sure that what it says I need to do or recommended for my shed, I'm following through. I'm not just half-assing it. I feel pretty damn accomplished on a DIY perspective. Let's not talk about the screws and the face plates, whether they're vertical or horizontal, because I just put the face plates on. I digress. And with that, the big projects of the shed are done. Yes, the ramp still needs stained. It's gonna be a running joke at this point. There's a few odds and ends I wanna do. I do wanna add a shed. Yeah, I'm in the damn shed. I do wanna add a workbench in here, and I do wanna put it in the loft on above that workbench. I do wanna do that. And I probably need to get gutters, a gutter system of some kind, so I don't have water hitting right here and bouncing on the ground and eroding underneath my panels. Even though I actually went around and put paint at the very edge under all the paneling. I did put paint down where my finger's at, around the whole building. So that's probably gonna be a spring project. And with that, I'll see all of you in the next one. Ho ho, ho ho. That was a project. For more DIY content, click this door. Can I help you? For more content posted this year, click this door. Cosmo, you're my way, love. And to subscribe, click on Cosmo. Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Mwah.